plus cities across the country united to draw the line. We are here to say to the county government that we reject his billionaires first agenda that pits immigrants against climate, climate against workers, workers against indigenous people, and says that we are all united as one. We are here because over the last few months we have seen Carney push forward Bill C5, an environmentally destructive bill that will result in pushing through projects without the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous people. We have seen the Carney government put forward Bill C2, which is going to take away the right of refugees to protect themselves and allow the government to cancel permits en masse. We have seen him decide to put $9 more billion into the military, which will all be a transfer of wealth to the shareholders of the weapons exporters. We have seen him go after airline workers, going after their right to strike. We have seen the government continue to arm Israel. And so this is one united billionaires first agenda that is attempting to attack each and every one of our communities, and we refuse. We are here and in 70 plus cities across the country to say that our movements are not divided and that Carney must pick a side. So, we are going to first hear from renowned environmentalist David Suzuki. Following that, we're going to hear from Grassy Narrows, Christy Swain, who has traveled 2,000 kilometers to be here with us. Then we're going to hear from Charlene, who's going to speak about the enormously successful attempt by working class people to push back and defend themselves against housing and evictions. And then we're going to hear someone from the Palestinian Youth Movement. And what we are doing here is showing that our movements are interconnected, that we are in one united struggle, and that we cannot be divided. That discrimination against one of us is discrimination against all of us. That an attack on one is an attack on all, and we are united to put forward our agenda against the Carney billionaire first agenda, particularly in the lead up to the fall budget. Thank you, David.
Start at the beginning. I just want to remind you that in 1988, the first major international conference on the environment, especially climate, was held here in Toronto. It was, the title of the conference was Our Changing Atmosphere, the Implications for Global Security. There, the delegates who came from all over the world concluded the science was in, that global warming, that's what we called it back then, threat to human survival, second only to all-out nuclear war. And in 1988, they called for a 20% reduction in emissions in 15 years. That was it. If we had taken that seriously and acted on that, we wouldn't have the problem we have today. In 1992, this remarkable document, I want to remind you, was called World Scientist Warning to Humanity, signed by 1,700 scientists from 71 countries, including over half of all Nobel Prize winners. And here's what it said. Human beings in the natural world are on a collision course. Human activities inflict harsh and often irreversible damage on the environment and on critical resources. If not checked, many of our current practices push at serious risk the future. We didn't pay attention to that. In 25 years later, 17,000 scientists from 184 countries signed World Scientist Warning to Humanity as second notice, saying that everything outlined in 1992 was worse than it was at that in 2017, except for the ozone layer. In 2022, World Scientist Warning of Climate Emergency was released, and it started, and quote, "We are now at code red on the planet Earth. Humanity is unequivocally facing a climate emergency. And what we're here to say is stop all of the political, the economic stuff, and the legal stuff. We are in an emergency, and we've got to act as it is an emergency. And you're going to hear from the people.
Bonjour, I'm Chrissy Isaacs from Grassy Narrows, and we traveled here over 2,000 kilometers to come and share our story of mercury poisoning in our water that's been there for over 50 years. And that's 50 years of us trying to fight for justice for our community, the loss of our way of life, the loss of having a good, healthy life. You know, in the studies, I want to point out, you know, that there's been a lot of young people that have died because of the way mercury affects the brain. What it does is it depletes that happy chemical in their brain. So a lot of young people don't understand why they feel the way they feel, and have left this world too soon, as young as 11 years old. You know, and Canada doesn't see that. They don't see what mercury poisoning is doing to our community. In the studies, it shows that in Grassy Narrows, our lifespan is 50 to 60 years, while the rest of Canada gets to live, you know, a good full life, 80 years. You know, every day we wake up, and for me, I've lived with mercury poisoning my whole life. I was one of the babies that was born with it in my blood. You know, and as time goes on, I get more and more symptoms, and I see it in my children, I see it in my grandchildren, I've seen it in my grandfather, and I've seen it in my parents. You know, that's 5 generations. How come Canada and the province haven't done anything about it? So that's why I'm here. I'm here to say, you know, enough is enough. We need our community to be fully compensated for the loss of life, for a short span life, and we need justice. We need our river to be cleaned up, and we need justice. Justice for Grassy Narrows.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlene Henry, and I am the co-chair of the York South Weston Tenant Union. And I'm here to say that migrants aren't the reason for the housing crisis. The federal government has made the housing crisis happen. As a worker, as a union member, as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, in my building, we had to go on rent strike because we saw what was happening in our community. We were being displaced. Everyone was being pushed out of the northwest end of the city of Toronto for gentrification. We went on a rent strike for 15 months against a corporate landlord who the federal government is very friendly with. They lobby every day for more rights to build housing in this country. And we went on a rent strike in June 2023, and in October 2024, we won. We won back some compensation for folks. No one was displaced from their home. People's houses, apartments got repairs, and people just got to live a little bit more safe. But I want us to continue to say that migrants are not the reason why we have no housing in this country. 30+ years of not building housing is the reason why we have no housing in this country. And the federal government needs to step up and build more housing. Solidarity.
Thank you so much. So as you can see, when we think about the fact that we are on the brink of climate collapse, when we see that our people are struggling to make rent, to live a decent life, to be able to make our ends meet, and yet we see the Carney government coming out and enriching the billionaires. When we see Indigenous communities that have been struggling for over half a century simply for their river to be clean, simply for Grassy Narrow to have the chance to be able to fall sick into their communities and be taken care of. And yet we are facing a government that refuses to act. We are in this moment also of enormous military expansion, right? We know that the Canadian government has continued to fund and support Israeli genocide, Israeli apartheid, and right now, as there is a genocide taking place in Gaza, according to the UN and almost every human rights organization in the country, this country refuses to do enough. So we are here to say that whether it is on climate, or economic justice, whether it is housing rights or migrant rights, whether it is Palestine or right here at home, we are facing a joint agenda and we will push back against it. And so today, we draw the line. We're going to take some media questions if people have any for all of us. So if I can ask the speakers to come up. We're also waiting for one more speaker if they can arrive. But does any media have any questions for any of the speakers? Right now we're facing, the Carney government, but also absolutely we are facing a global climate collapse. We're seeing a world inch towards armament. We are seeing racism and xenophobia rising like never before. And so there is no more time to lose. We have historically organized on the basis of issues. We are saying that not only will we fight for our issues, we will fight together. And particularly in the context of an upcoming federal budget, which will really indoctrinate and internalize these decisions for years to come. We're seeing public service cuts being announced at the rate of 15 to 30%, that it has become essential for us to do this.
I organize with folks who have never organized before in 2023 for a rent strike. People are now becoming very aware of what's happening all around them, how it's affecting our lives each and every day. From our Indigenous brothers, sisters, and siblings, to migrants, to housing, it all is interconnected. So we have to draw the line and say it's enough is enough and push back. Because when we fight, we win. So we just have to keep fighting. Thank you.
Question, and we're trying to do it in a soundbite for you. Like, this is crazy. The heart of our problem today is white, racist patriarchy. You only have to look at the roots. It begins with the age of exploration in the 1500s, when Europeans discovered a way to navigate by the stars so they could go on a trip and get back home. So they began to explore Africa, North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and everywhere they found riches. And there were people there, everywhere. People of color. And what you found is every rinky-dink government in Europe, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, Austria, England, Denmark, they all established colonies to suck their resources from them and take over. And the indigenous people who'd lived in these lands for thousands of years were a pain in the ass because they didn't want you to come in and wreck their land. That's at the heart of all of this. And the systems we've constructed, the political and economic systems, are founded on that ultimate mastery or supremacy of the white look at the world around, which is a resources look that was brought by the explorers. So you want to get to the heart of it. Mr. Carney is trapped by the system. I don't think he can be any different from Mr. Polyev because they're trapped by the system. And Danielle Smith and Ford have him by the shorts because they're all trapped in the system.
What is our response to the question that these bills, C5, C2, etc., are about making Canada more resilient and about standing up to the United States? So let's be very, very clear. Bill C2 is an attempt to be able to take away the ability of people to apply for refugee status. That is not about security, that's about depravity, that's about denial, that's about discrimination, that's about abuse. These are not about border security, they are about economic attacks on our communities and division and destruction. When we look at Bill C5 creates the Major Projects Office. And the CEO of that office now is a former pipeline CEO. This is not about developing Canadian economy. It is about enriching the CEO and the billionaire class who have been deeply integrated into the power of this country, who are actually shaping public policy. Now we have to be very clear. The working people of Canada and the working people of the United States have more in common, whereas the CEOs in Canada and the CEOs in the US and Prime Minister Carney have more in common. We are not here opposing or standing up to America. We are actually seeing that the Canadian military is deeply integrated into the US government's projects, including its Space War project. We see the Canadian border deeply integrated with America. We see Canadian and American banks working hand in hand. And how do you differentiate between the ownership of these businesses, because they are these billionaire shareholders who sit on all of these board offices? Right? So this whole idea that Canada is putting its elbows up, well, Carney is not doing that. Carney is not standing up to America. Carney is continuing the project of deeper and deeper integration with the United States. And we are being fooled, and we refuse to be fooled. We are drawing the line, because on one side is all of us, and on the other are the super rich, whether they be American, Canadians, Europeans, Indians, or from any other place. Any other questions?
The values of the Carney government is about corporations and power, not people. It's about profit over people. They're willing to give up our land in order to be rich, while we're all here struggling. Folks can't put food on the table. Folks can't pay their mortgage. Folks can't pay their rent. And it keeps going up. When is the end? While they're sitting there accounting money, and we're just trying to make ends meet. Thank you.
We're too focused on the shallow, Mr. Carney and all of that. You're not looking at the underlying systems that are driving us. And I believe one of the major problems we have is, ask any child, hold your breath for 5 minutes while I continue to talk. And they find out, damn, what the most important thing is in their lives. If you don't have air for 3 minutes, you're dead. If you have to breathe the kind of air that is right here in this block right now, we get sick. And yet our Prime Minister for 10 years said, we can't do anything about climate change. That's crazy economics. So he elevated the economy above the very atmosphere that gives us air to breathe, that gives us weather, climate, and the seasons. This is what's crazy. The systems that allow one person in the world to say he's going to be a trillionaire. A system in which the fastest growing segment of the economy are billionaires. Why is that even allowed? It's an obscenity for anyone to be in the super rich. Now what? Let's just give them a prize and say, oh, you've reached 100 million? Great, we're going to take all the rest of your money, but you are a big, important person. Let's do it the way Indigenous people did in British Columbia. When you acquired a sufficient standard in society, you threw a potlatch where you gave away everything. Why? Because the most important thing was standing in the community. And you got the right to carve another ring around your totem pole. And man, if you walked into the village and there were 3 rings, you knew that there was a really important person, not some asshole that's got $10 billion.
Okay, our last speaker has arrived, Omar from the Palestinian Youth Movement. He's going to give his last remarks, and then we'll end the press conference and start the rally. All right, Omar.
Hello everyone, my name is Omar El-Khatib. I am an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement. After 2 years of genocide in Gaza, the United Nations has now officially recognized that what is currently happening in Gaza is genocide. This comes after 2/3 of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed. It comes as the death toll has reached hundreds of thousands, but this level of death and destruction is no accident, but it's the result of the continuous failure of the international community, the failure to hold Israel and its backers to account. And today we are joined by a coalition of organizations demanding resolutions and actions towards justice for the many struggles that we face in our communities today. Because as Canada subsidizes fossil fuel corporations and builds pipelines on Indigenous land without consent while criminalizing its land defenders, it is also subsidizing weapons for Israel and arming it with the tools of genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Shame. The reality today is that Canadian-made weapon components are being sent to Israel with the sole intention of furthering death and destruction in Palestine. And this is why we are here today to demand a 2-way arms embargo on Israel. This demand is part and parcel of our collective demands for justice today. Over the last 2 years, the Liberal government has claimed twice that it had stopped approving permits for arms exports to Israel. However, our arms embargo report exposes otherwise, that shipments continue to make their way to Israel. Shame! This includes military parts for F-35 fighter jets that are currently bombing Gaza and the region, contracts for over 50,000 mortar cartridges worth over $80 million and more than 400,000 bullets. Shame! What this points to is a similar logic of how the Canadian state has approached the global climate crisis, how it has approached truth and reconciliation in this country. It's a logic that Canadian officials prioritize profits over morality and basic rights to life. And this is why we demand that the Canadian government and its institutions cut ties with this genocidal state and impose a two-way arms embargo. And it's this reason we believe that enforcing an arms embargo reflects the demand of all peoples seeking justice and demand for all oppressed peoples.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Please gather together on the corner. We're going to please grab some placards, grab the banners, get ready. Soon you're going to hear us about the next steps. Thank you, everyone.
We show today, not the billionaires, it belongs to the people!
Did you see them? They were looking down from their penthouse at us. They were all scared. They better be!
If you need a seat, please come up to the front. We have accessible seating here. If you need ASL interpretation, please come on up. We have a comrade right here.
So friends, this march is part of a wave of actions of 70 cities across the land. And we're here to show the people will not be divided by racism, by fear, or by greed. My name is Nigel Barif. I'm a vice president at the Elementary Teachers of Toronto. We've got a bunch of educators and education workers. But we're here with all of you. We stand with all of you here together today from all the different movements. I'm here with my co-MC, Saron.
Hi everyone, my name is Saron. I'm from Migrant Workers Alliance for Change. If you are a migrant or a documented person, a refugee, an international, make some noise! If you are a resident or a comrade from Grassy or an indigenous nation, make some noise! If you came from out of Toronto to be part of this historic march, make some noise.
10,000 of us, 10,000.
And as Nigel said, there are 70 cities across the country that are taken to the streets, including thousands outside the Prime Minister's office today in Ottawa. On Monday, Parliament returned, and let's talk about what this Prime Minister did since coming into office. He rammed through Bill C-5 to bulldoze over Indigenous lands.
Boo! Shame!
And we're here to, wait, what are we here to do? To draw the line. What are we doing?
Draw the line!
He has also said that he is going to cut 15% in public service jobs as he spends $9 million in the military. What are we gonna do?
Draw the line!
Austerity kills, that's right. At the same time, the richest few in this country, the corporations, the deportation judges, the pipeline CEOs, the corporate monopolies, they're getting richer while the rest of us are struggling to make ends meet. But what are we gonna do?
Draw the line!
Racism and xenophobia has been used as a way to divide and distract working people. But we're not gonna let that happen, right? We're going to refuse racism, reject division. Is that right? This Prime Minister said that he would defend Canada against the United States. But instead, what did he do? The first bill he tabled as Prime Minister was Bill C-2. This bill gives the government the power to cancel immigration permits en masse, to revoke permanent residency, to deny refugees seeking status. We're talking about women, we're talking about queer and trans people, we're talking about disabled working people who are now being denied the right to safety. But what are we gonna do? This bill also gives the federal government massive powers to surveil all of us, whether we're migrants or citizens. So let's put this together. Increase in military funding, bulldozing over Indigenous lands and sovereign rights, using racism and xenophobia to distract us while engaging in destructive climate policies. Who does this serve? It doesn't serve the 10,000 people who took to the streets today, does it?
No!
It serves them, and then there's the rest of us who today are here to draw the line. So make some noise!
So friends, we're gathered here today on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Haudenosaunee. This land has been stewarded by Indigenous peoples since immemorial. We honor their resistance and their leadership, and we recommit ourselves to solidarity with Indigenous struggles.
We want land back, and when we say land back, we mean all of it. All of Canada is on stolen land, so what do we want?
First speaker, who's grounded in Indigenous justice leadership, give your full attention and respect to Chrissy Isaac, a mother and land defender from Grassy Narrows.
Give it up!
Would you? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. First of all, I just want to say, shame on you, Doug Ford. Fuck you, Doug Ford. We need to all stand together and support all Indigenous lands and waters. You know, right now in Grassy Narrows, 90% of my community is poisoned by mercury for 50 years. 50 years, that's 5 generations in my family alone, where my grandpa, he lived off the land, and his source of, his way of life was the river. And my mom, my dad, they have mercury poisoning. I have mercury poisoning. My kids have mercury poisoning. My grandchildren have mercury poisoning. Why is it taking so long to get justice, to even have clean water? Today when we're in this march, I'm also thinking about Niskandiga. You know, they don't have clean drinking water. Why is it taking so long? You know, shame on you, shame on the government for not looking at us. And that mill, it's still going. That Dryden paper mill is still up, and it's still poisoning our people. You know, we need to shut it down. We need the government to shut it down. Kilometers to come here to say, fuck you, Doug Ford. Smarten up. Sober up. Yeah, I'm gonna ask my brother here from Six Nations to say something too.
Skano swagwego. Joha haisa ne gaso. Ne gayata ne wagi shouta. Ne gayat kono ni wakwenjo de. Ne o swega ne te gatungyo. Ne wani verdisha de eat guy wine go awado. My name is Colin Martin. I am a member of the Mohawk Nation Turtle Clan. I am currently the chair of the Haudenosaunee External Relations Committee. I traveled here from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and I extend many layers of gratitude to be able to share my words with you today. It is an honor to stand side by side with each and every one of you as we collectively bring our bundles of strength and resistance together to unify against the ongoing colonial attacks of our oppressors. And we all know who that is. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy is not a stakeholder, but a sovereign government and treaty partner to the Crown. We are the oldest known participatory democracy in the world today. Today, as we bravely stand on the back of Turtle Island, let us be grounded and feel the prayers and protection of our ancestors who fought hard for us all to be here. There are many serious issues that have brought us here, and I am so proud of every one of you who showed up here today. That's a big nyamagoa from me to use. It shows you are committed to change the future for our children, our grandchildren, and the faces yet to come. Any attempt to impose Bill C-5 or related development on Haudenosaunee lands and jurisdiction without free, prior, and informed consent will be met with legal and physical resistance. The path forward is clear. Canada and Ontario must engage with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy as treaty partners, not as an afterthought. Failure to do so will result in escalating consequences for your governments and your economic priorities. What we see here today is just the beginning. Fill your heart with the emotions of today. Go back to your communities and organize your people, because we have some important work to do. We will not stop. We will stop at nothing to defend our lands, our cultures, our sovereignty, and we will let nothing stand in our way. We demand justice. We demand peace. We demand protection of our Mother Earth. In closing, Mark Carney, Doug Ford, lend me your ear for a second or two. And all those who support them, we bring a strong message of resistance for you today. If you continue to ignore us, continue to value money over the protection of our lands, continue to threaten our sovereignty, continue to poison our people in grassy narrows, let it be known that we are coming for you. We are coming loud and proud, armed with the strength and spiritual protection of our ancestors. And for all of you who stand here today, we stand here to draw that fucking line. Stop. Make the change. Thank you.
Houses, personal support work, and delivery food and medicine to your homes. Here we are again, no? facing a federal government breaking their promise on regularization. Shame on you. But then also blaming our communities for the economic crisis that so many of us are facing. Let's be clear. We haven't trapped in the middle of party politics, just opposing elections, blame for everything that is wrong in this country. Politicians say we are blamed for the housing crisis. Meanwhile, they are the ones who got rid of rent control, who are investing in affordable housing and allowing corporations to make massive amounts of profit. Politicians say we are to blame for the healthcare systems because not working. Meanwhile, they are actively starving the public healthcare system, privatizing and not investing to make sure we all have access to educated healthcare. Politicians like Pierre Poilievre say there are not enough jobs for real Canadians. But who they mean when they say real Canadians? We are all immigrants on this land. We are all the settlers, except for the First Nation and indigenous people of this land. The truth is, we are the backbone of this country. We clean, we care, we cook, we deliver, we harvest. We do the work that keeps thy society alive. La verdad es que cuando nosotros venimos a este país, nosotros limpiamos, cuidamos, cocinamos y sembramos. Nosotros hacemos el trabajo que mantiene a esta sociedad viva y todavía somos criminalizados y amenazados con deportarnos. And still, we are criminalized and threatened with detention and deportation. Now, we will see too, the government wants to give itself more power to strip migrants of permits, to deny hearings, increase surveillance, and to push people out without justice or due process. This is nothing but a mass deportation agenda, and we say no. It's rising. They try to divide us, but we know the truth. An injury to one is an injury to all. Ellos tratan de dividirnos, pero nosotros sabemos la verdad. Cuando lastiman a uno, nos lastiman a todos. When migrants are denied housing, all working class people suffer. When migrants are deported, all families lost. We stand together for justice, dignity, and status for all migrants. We fight not only for ourselves, but for every community struggling against borders and oppressions. Nosotros peleamos por justicia, por dignidad. Nosotros peleamos no solo por individuos, también peleamos por nuestra comunidad. From Mexico to Palestine, from Turtle Island to every land. We will not be silent. We will not be invisible. We are here and we are not leaving. Nosotros seremos silenciados. Nosotros no seremos invisibles. Nosotros estamos aquí y no nos vamos a ir. Please repeat after me. Justice for migrants!
Canada has a moral and a legal responsibility to stop selling arms to Israel. There is no doubt about that. That is factual. That is called international law. So we are proud here today to introduce our next speaker from the Palestinian Youth Movement, Omar.
organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement. We are honored to be speaking amongst a coalition of organizations demanding resolutions and action towards justice for the many struggles that exist in our communities today. Because as Canada subsidizes fossil fuel corporations and builds pipelines on Indigenous land without consent, while it criminalizes land defenders and exploits migrant workers to benefit its economy, it is also subsidizing weapons for Israel and arming it with the tools of genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Shame! What we see today in Gaza is not occurring in a vacuum. In fact, it is a continuation of over a century of settler colonialism, a genocide backed by the Western war machine and funded by Western governments, Canada included. Shame! And this violent project, like all the struggles we are supporting today, has prioritized profit over any sense of morality. Shame! And after 2 years of genocide in Gaza, the United Nations has now recognized that what is happening is genocide. This comes after 2/3 of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed. It comes as the death toll has reached the hundreds of thousands. But this level of death and destruction is not an accident. It is the result of a continuous failure of the international community to hold Israel and its backers to account, a direct result of complicity of Western powers and their investment in genocide. Shame! And the bleaker reality today is that Canadian-made weapon components are being sent to Israel with the sole intention of furthering death and destruction in Palestine and the Arab region. Shame! So this is why we are here today, to demand a total two-way arms embargo on the Zionist state. And this is part and parcel of our collective demands for justice today. Because over the last 2 years, this liberal government has claimed twice that it had stopped arms exports to Israel. But our arms embargo report now has exposed that this is a lie and shipments continue to make their way to Israel. Shame! The logic of erasure we see in Palestine is the same logic that the Canadian state has approached the global climate crisis, how it has approached truth and reconciliation in this country, how it treats the migrant workers that sustain the lives of our people here. It shows that Canadian officials have prioritized profit over any morality, decent, or the basic right to life. Shame! Mark Carney, your responsibility is not to protect war criminals or enable genocide, but to serve your constituents and address these domestic crises. So we must continue to take these streets like we are today. These numbers united horrify the ruling class. They are petrified when they see us come together under these many different banners for the same cause. So on October 4th, we will be marching for 2 years of genocide in Gaza. We're going to be starting like we did today, 2 p.m. at Yonge and Dundas. Tell your friends, your family, your co-workers, because we have to continue this momentum that we saw today and apply it for this arms embargo, for justice, for all oppressed people. October 4, Yonge and Dundas, 2 p.m. We hope to see you there.
So now we'd like you to please welcome two extraordinary Palestinian musicians whose voices have carried songs of resistance, love, and liberation across our city and far beyond. Rula Saeed and Miriam Toller are artists and cultural workers who weave together traditional Arab music and contemporary spirit, reminding us of the power that music to heal, to resist, and to unite. Today they bring their voices into this movement for justice. Please join me in welcoming Rula Saeed and Miriam Toller.
We're going to take this, we're going to hear Rula Saeed and Miriam Toller, then we have 2 more amazing speakers, and then there'll be musical performance, so please stick around. If you do need a seat, there are some accessible seats here. There are portable washrooms here, but we're going to continue the program, and we're asking you to keep your energy up. Are you going to do that? Let's break it down.
I'm Rula Saeed, and I'm joined by my sister in spirit, Miriam Toller, and her daughter, Omnia Toller, as a surprise guest. And they're one of the reasons we're doing this, because we want a world for our children. And we send our broken hearts and our love to the children and the people of Palestine. Nowhere is it more clear where greed and domination and extraction and demonization of the indigenous peoples is being exploited than in Palestine. And on that note, we're going to sing a song that says we're coming to bring help.
And then we'll have more musical performances where some of you will be able to put down your placards and get moving and dance and really celebrate in the unity and the power that we built today. So let's give it up for Ali Rougeau, who is a climate activist. Ali, welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon, Toronto. You guys look so good when you come together to fight for justice. So as you know, one of the reasons we are here today is to end the destructive fossil fuel era we are in. We want climate justice, hand in hand with justice for workers, for indigenous peoples, for migrants, and for Gaza. Last year, 70,000 Canadians had to flee their homes due to wildfires. Thousands of them came back to nothing but ash. And the hardest hit communities were rural, remote, and indigenous communities who are already struggling with no decent housing or health care. Meanwhile, across Canadian cities, it was hundreds of thousands of tenants who were suffocated through dangerous heat waves because of poor ventilation or AC. That is the reality of the climate crisis. It threatens every aspect of our lives, and it hits working people the hardest. But that climate crisis was avoidable. The pain Canadians feel today is the result of decades of greedy, selfish politicians, CEOs, and bankers who knew that keeping us hooked on fossil fuels would lead us there. They created this mess, and they are still fueling it. Did you know that in Canada, oil and gas companies lobby our federal government 5 times per working day every year? 5 times a day. Our governments are completely captured by big oil. And what better proof do we need than Mark Carney appointing a former fossil fuel CEO to head a new government agency in charge of approving projects? Or Energy Minister Hodgson threatening to cancel the cap on oil and gas emissions, even though it is the most polluting sector in Canada and the only one whose emissions are going up. Or the Ford government bulldozing through Indigenous rights and basic environmental protection with their ugly Bill 5. And while our governments bend over backwards to please oil giants, these guys are raking in billions. And I mean that literally. Canadian billionaires like the Irvings and the Richardsons and the Edwards continue to accumulate obscene amount of oil money while the world burns. The result of this petrostate behavior is already clear. Canada will not be reaching its 2030 climate targets at this pace. Canada is still one of the top emitters per capita in the world, worse than the US, worse than China and India that so often get cited. Shame, because the consequences will be felt most by Indigenous communities, by migrants, by low-income families, and by our friends in the Global South who have not contributed to this. So let's talk about how we get out of this destructive fossil fuel era. First, we separate oil and state. We stop sending tens of billions of taxpayer dollars to fossil fuel companies and subsidies. We kick big polluters out of the halls of power in Ottawa and in Queen's Park. Second, we invest in climate solutions that immediately make life better for Canadians. Free, reliable public transit, home renovations to lower bills and energy consumption, heat pumps for all to have accessible, clean heating and cooling throughout the year. And third, we make the economy work for us, not the other way around. We ramp up Indigenous and community ownership of renewables. We mandate a circular supply chain for renewable energy. And we create a youth climate corps to employ tens of thousands of young people in climate jobs. As I wrap up, I want to say I understand how tempting it is to look away from the climate crisis. I am terrified too. But I want us to remember that ordinary people have come together to do extraordinary things in the past. So instead of letting fear win, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna join forces with each other like we're doing today across movements and borders. We're gonna channel our rage and our fear into pressuring these captured politicians relentlessly. And we already start building the equitable climate solutions that we want for ourselves in our communities, in our unions, in our schools. Because when our future is under attack, what do? We stand up and we fight back. Keep fighting back, Toronto.
Thank you, Ali. Low-wage workers are climate workers and are most impacted. Migrant workers are climate workers. Gig workers are climate workers. And that's why we need to stand up against this Carney agenda together. It's Carney and it's other politicians who do the bidding of the ruling elites who make profit off of our crisis. But we say no more. Some of those ruling elites include some of the richest people in this country who are housing developers. So next we're going to welcome Charlene Henry, who is a member of Unifor as well as an organizer with York South-Weston Tenants Union. Give it up for Charlene!
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you feeling this afternoon? My name is Charlene Henry. I'm here with the York South-Weston Tenant Union. I'm also a worker, a mother, a daughter, a wife, and most importantly, an activist. I got involved in tenant rights many years ago when the roof of my building fell down. I live on the top floor. I was pregnant with my first child, came home to a big bubble. I said, what the hell is that? And water came down on all of my son's stuff before he was born. I went to the building and they said, there's nothing we can do about it. I learned about this thing called the Landlord and Tenant Board right here in Ontario that Doug Ford and his friends control. The Landlord and Tenant Board is not for tenants, it's for landlords, corporate landlords. The same corporate landlords who are in Ottawa lobbying the Carney government to make sure that they have more land to develop on. Shame on them, shame. Over the years, I've kept fighting for tenant rights with my neighbors. Many of my neighbors have never organized before, but as a member of a union, I had a union behind me that helped me become vocal and stand up for the rights of tenants in this city, province, and country. In 2023, myself and 200 of my neighbors went on a rent strike. A rent strike where we held our money back from our corporate landlord for 15 long months. No one thought we would make it. They said they won't last 1 month. We lasted 15 months. My mother's on the audience. She's a senior on a fixed income. She held her rent for 15 months for the betterment of her neighbors. So we could have clean homes, free of pests, with no rent increases that are exuberant because our rents were going up by 8, 9, and 10%. We fought that battle and we won back in 2024. But we keep fighting. We keep fighting because every day we see everything going up in price. We go to the supermarket, what we have to buy is more expensive. We have to drive, take the transit, it's more expensive. But the government, they're not doing anything to help us. Queen's Park doesn't help us. Parliament doesn't help us. That's why we're here today. We're standing up and we're fighting back against all the things that economic injustices that are happening right around us. So I ask everyone here, get together with your neighbors, talk to them, support each other, walk with them, march with them, fight this system, fight the Landlord and Tenant Board, ask for rent control, not ask, demand rent control. We need it because people are suffering every day. They're deciding between paying rent and putting food in their cupboards to eat. Their children are going to school hungry. They're not functioning well because they're hungry in school because parents can't afford it. So let's get together and support the tenant movement and make sure that in Queen's Park we bring back rent control, vacancy control, and we stop these corporate landlords up in Ottawa from taking our land. It's for the people. People over profit. Solidarity, people.
From the nation killer whale, from the House of Wakas, Bella Bella. She is a member of the Yaksip Firekeepers, Jiksan-led, youth-led collective dedicated to land defense and cultural resurgence. Welcome, Gracie.
Simgigat, Sigidam Hana, Gilbawiltik, Denise, Sakadze, Skyze. My name is Grace Vickers, and I'm a killer whale from the House of Aweebakwawakas. I'm Heltzik, Haida, and Timtien, and I'm a member of the Lakiat Firekeepers. This is a Gitsan youth-led collective, and it was born out of resistance. We came together because colonial industry is pushing to carve the Prince Rupert gas transmission pipeline through our lands, and we're here to draw a line. The Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Pipeline, or PRGT, is an 800-kilometer pipeline designed to move frack gas from northeast BC to the coast. Along its route, it cuts directly through unceded Gitsan and Wet'suwet'en territories. And it isn't just a line on a map, it's an industrial corridor that will bring compressor stations, man camps, tanker traffic, and the constant risk of spills, leaks, and explosions. As Indigenous youth, we were too often left out of this conversation, even though we are the ones who will be living with the impacts long after the companies pack up and leave. If our voices are silenced, our futures are stolen, and that's why we demand that decision-making frameworks honor Indigenous law and the 7 generations principle. The PRGT pipeline doesn't just threaten the land, it threatens the safety of Indigenous women and children with the risk of man camps. It puts our rivers, salmon, and medicine at risk. It threatens our hospitals, our health, our air pollution from compressor stations. It steals from our future to feed billionaires. This is a US-backed pipeline, and it's directly lining the pockets of Trump's inner circle, and it's leaving our community to clean up the mess. We cannot keep selling our precious resources for the short-term profits of the wealthy while rural Indigenous communities pay the real price with our health, our safety, and our survival. So, today we call on Canada, stop siding with corporations and start protecting the collective well-being of future generations. Our food, our water, and our air, these are all non-negotiable. And lastly, I just wanted to recognize the 2 work of Indigenous women from Toronto. They joined the Freedom Flotilla. Musquassen and Dr. Suzanne. You can follow their journey at Turtle Island to Palestine. And you can follow our journey on Instagram with the Lakiat Firekeepers or Gitsan, Youth of the Gitsan Lakiat or Lakiat Youth. So lastly, I just wanted to make it known, from Skeena to Palestine, occupation is a crime. All right, I'm gonna do a chant with you guys. From Skeena to Palestine, occupation is a crime.
All right, everyone, that's all of our speakers today. We next up have some amazing musical performances. We're going to ask you to put up the signs at the front, but before you move and before you start dancing to the amazing music that you're about to hear, just want to take in this moment, this historic moment where 10,000 people hit the streets, not only from one movement, but across 5 different movements to fight back against an austerity agenda, an agenda that is killing people. But today we said we refuse and we will make life. Is that right?
So we need the megaphones back. We like some megaphones out there in the audience. If you mind bringing them back behind the stage.
Yes, if you have a megaphone, please bring it up. Okay. This is the kind of creativity and power that we need. We have puppets. I saw a puppet of David Fingal, the Scotiabank fund manager earlier. This is exactly what we need for not only October 4th, the Palestinian Youth Movement action at Yonge and Dundas 2 p.m., for the next set of actions that will happen in order to continue and fight back against Carney's billionaire first agenda.
Because when we fight,
All right.
you're welcome to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. If you have a placard, please bring it up, and let's get it going.